It's good. My
This
question.
thing never works for me here. It always works at home. It's up just right. There we go. That's what I say.
Ann's brother is there.
Yes.
We spent all day yesterday. Urgent care. She's been there with him all day. He had a stroke and heart attack. Now he's got some kind of planning.
Yes. It's so sad. So sad.
The other thing.
Finally,
I have.
his daughter Carrie.
Multiple calls trying to.
She got here at 3 o'clock. And so
Harry was just a little older.
she was fucking shooting at the hospital.
Well, it sounds like because we had a hot meeting today. He was supposed to be on, so Matt ended up being on it. Said he said she's resting. I go to the room resting.
Yeah, Karen has,
They've already got the checks.
I need to come up with a miracle. Eyeglasses.
That's right.
Wouldn't that be nice? Or a miracle fix for your glasses where you didn't your eyes, you didn't have to wear them.
Be honest with you. 2 or 3 other.
I mean, they feel like they're just dirty all the time.
I work on those for that. Got to the moment I started, so I had to get put the glasses on and talk to college. It's like.
Go ahead for right now.
What's the reason?
No.
Let me get my contact. I can tell you.
It's like, was I too loud with my? Yeah.
At least that's what they and one of the other agents that had called me this morning. They're at 15.
Good. How are you?
Southwest.
how was the facilities? I had
It was good. It
to
was good.
Say again.
Definitely got everybody, Mike and Steve especially, thank you.
And if it wasn't in there, make sure the check went to the right place. Please. That's a pretty big check.
No, they're supposed to.
I don't know. I have to confirm with them that they're.
Was I economic? Hey guys, yeah.
Oh.
I gotta go.
Oh, yeah, they did, yeah.
Going back tomorrow, I think. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that's pressure.
Is he on that committee? And he didn't come?
Don't complain. Don't complain. Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's when it's like, no. Somebody said, don't ever want a problem with someone else.
Yeah.
Not willing to be part of the process.
This is, sorry, this is happening.
Where, okay, all right, so sends out Karen's in the hospital. She taking out things, she's all stable, she's well,
I didn't know.
healthy, but just an infection, so anyway, I just want to make sure. Both of them are fine. Okay.
We're gonna make it as complicated.
Seriously, yeah.
I can't wait. Can't wait.
You're gonna.
Seriously.
We're talking about tangling and postponing, and I mean, we're gonna.
Oh,
I got
please.
some hard questions.
You know, it wouldn't be right if you didn't. All right.
You got some accountability you're gonna do.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Be sure to make sure.
All right. Good evening.
Don't make me nervous.
Chopping wood. That seems to be our pastime lately. So welcome this evening, Tuesday, June 11th. We're going to kick things off with Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag led by Dave Covington. Our Texas Pledge will be led by Executive Director, BEDC Executive Director Cynthia Hernandez. And then Stephanie will lead us in our invocation.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we just see you this evening, Father, just praising your holy name. Father, thank you for the beautiful sunshine today. Father, thank you for this wonderful community that you've blessed us with. And I just pray for this evening that our deliberations and our decisions, that they are guided by you and that they please you, Lord. Father, I thank you for all the staff and the families that have dealt with the storms and the aftermath these last few weeks. And we know this is our Father's world, Father, it's yours. And we know that you will protect and you will be faithful. And I just thank you for each one that has given their time and their efforts to help us recover. Father, we thank you so much for what you've blessed us with, for it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, with that, we'll call the June 11th meeting to order around 5:30 p.m. Again, thank you guys for being here. First item on the agenda are comments. I have two, and then I also have one that's on public hearing. So we'll those that signed up for a public hearing, we'll get to that. First one I have here is Rucker Preston. So if you don't mind stating your name and address for the record.
Sure. Council, my name is Rucker Preston, live at 2013 Hilltop Street here in Belton. Our community is really full for the leadership that you as council do, but also our staff here in the city. And I just want to take a few minutes to thank the staff. And you all have done this, the community has done it well. But we can't say thank you enough. The night of the storm of the tornadoes that came through our community, it was 30 minutes later that there was city manager and assistant city manager, Sam and Matt, driving through our street, asking if our own kids by name and if our neighbors were doing okay. First, asking if everyone was safe, checking on trees. They had 4 or 5 phones and walkie-talkies and their yellow vest. It was really cool to not just see their competency and their work ethic, and I'm sure they worked 100 hours a week for the next 2 weeks, but just their care for our citizens and our community. And it's recognized, so we're really grateful, not just for Public Works, who worked around the clock, but also for the police department and fire department as well. So I think we have a lot of special things here in the community, and they're not thanked enough. So I just want to thank you guys.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Rucker.
Thank you.
And also thank you for your service on the
Yes.
school. For those that don't know,
Yep.
one of our trustees, Belton School District. All right, next is Dr. Kent, Gary Kent.
Well, greetings, everyone, Mr. Mayor and all the council member and all the fantastic service leaders. I am the pastor of Central Texas Cathedral Worship Center located right at 700 South Main. And what I come today is to ask for your consideration at the Avenue D, right there, Avenue D in Maine, to consider a pedestrian crosswalk so that people are able to cross safely. Now, don't get me wrong, we got some great first responders, but I believe that there will be able to help parishioners and even other people that come, because we all know Main Street, when it get busy, it get busy. And just to echo a little what the other gentleman said, I really appreciate the leadership that we have, the city manager, city secretary. Every time I go there, amen, they see me. And what I mean by that, I'm not invisible. And that is great. And I continue to, and I love to be able to enter into conversation with you all. So beside that, crosswalk for your consideration one day at Avenue D, Avenue H, and Main Street. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll staff will look into that. All right, that's all I have here. Just by way of announcement, Sam Listy, our city manager, is not here this evening. Be in prayer for his wife. Karen is in the hospital with an infection, stable, nothing major, we don't think, but just under receiving care there. So Sam's with her, which is a good thing. Next that we have on the agenda is items 3 through 5 is our consent agenda. These items can be enacted by a single motion unless someone on the council chooses to move one of these items or more. So Chair would entertain a motion.
You want to read them?
Oh, yeah, I usually do that. I didn't do that. Yeah. So item 3 is the minutes of the May 28th meeting. Item 4 is a resolution releasing 37 acres owned by Billy Dunlap and known in as Belcat property ID 31171 from the city's ETJ. And also a resolution, item 5, releasing the following properties owned by Salado Independent School District from the Belton's ETJ: 6.185 acres, 2.747 acres, and then 40 acres, all with the Belcat IDs in the agenda.
I move we approve items 3 through 5 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve these items. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Item 6, the public hearing and consider items related to the application from Bell Oaks Apartments LP to the Texas Department of Housing and CAFAIR 2023 housing tax credits for Bell Oaks Apartments. A memorandum of understanding for a comprehensive and operations plan, and B, a resolution of no objection to the issuance of tax credits. All right, Mr. Bates.
All right. Mayor Council, thank you for letting us bring this item to you tonight. What you have before you is, again, an MOU and a resolution for consideration. I do want to point out that we are joined by Laura Jensen in the audience. She has come down from New York. And so she has hopefully got some good barbecue, and Belton's treating her well. We welcome you to our town and we appreciate it. But she is representing the developer on this initial one. So again, hoping that we'll have some positive news to share with you tonight from Bell Oaks. Obviously, something that we know well. It's a 200-unit apartment complex, over 50 years old within our community. Here's kind of the layout that you can see that we have with it. Picture there. What was brought to us was a request for a tax, basically an application for credits. And with that was essentially our support in them pursuing that request. Kind of allowed us to kind of get involved with an operations plan and some items that we wanted to see. As you know, Bell Oaks has been an area of focus within our community certainly from a policing standpoint over the years, and any improvements that we can make there, especially when we hear new ownership, new management, really thinking that may be a focus of trying to improve some things, both for the residents there and also from our community resources that get utilized. You guys will see in front of you today, and this was kind of listed out, a couple of things. First of all, they're going to make a sizable investment. That's what they've shown into the complex itself. Brand new appliances, new lighting, security added to that, playscapes. Really seems to be, we've reviewed some of the initial plans that Lauren and her team sent over. It really seems to be a true investment in that complex. With that, we kind of asked for a couple of things in return, right? You know, it says we kind of get ready for the MOU and the support that we're going to provide through that. Some of the things that we added since then, the chain link fencing around some of the areas. There was initially discussion of barbed wire and that kind of stuff. The chain link seems appropriate and seems to be what we can do to kind of confine that. Also to a bit of at least more increased leverage for our police resources out there, the ability to criminal trespass individuals who are not residents there that may be nefarious or bad actors, what have you, through it. Also, the ability for parking passes, systems, that kind of stuff to be put in place. Again, that so much streamlines what we're able to do if we have that partnership, that bridge with management there and with the security that they're. So kind of some of the key elements off the, I kind of covered some of the parking pass, the police department, and that kind of stuff. So we're satisfied with what they provided with the MOU or the recommendation for the MOU. We feel like it is, again, seems to be on all faces a adjustment in that complex. We feel like we've been heard. I think Chief would share that. I think over the past several months, maybe to Lauren's credit here, Chief said that it's been positive. They've seen a reduction in some calls, but obviously, from some of the numbers that we've had in previous years, the volume is still extremely high, and something that needs attention. So with that is the presentation. We do have Lauren here, and of course, you'll have the public hearing for people to be able to speak. But that's what's before you today.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. So before we dive into it, we'll go ahead and open the floor for public comments. This is an opportunity for the developer or the representative to share, and also for any public to either say anything positive or negative about the proposed item. So we'll open the public hearing if anyone wants to speak. I do have one listed, so Marvin Bell, if you don't mind, just for the record, state your address, name and address.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Marvin L. Bell. I live at 3609 North Drive, Belton, Texas, 76513. You guys jump over us and get the other part. So we're just outside, but we're also inside the city limits. My purpose for standing is that I've been a resident mailing address for the last 22 plus years. And I'm privy to the MOU, and I was doing some reading. I talked to Mr. Listy about it. And my question is this: what leverage do we have as a municipality in the event the owner doesn't live up to what they say they're going to do? Because $13 million is a sizable amount of credit that you're giving. And if for some reason they decide to do something different with those funds, what can we do and what do we have language-wise? Because being subject to, as opposed to being required to in the MOU, is kind of what I call a weasel or easy way out clause. So we need to be more specific in terms of if what they're doing is going to live up to that $13 million. Otherwise, you should have what's called liquidated damages. And that simply says, if you're not living up to something, then there ought to be some recourse that the city has. The other reason I stand is that I'm familiar with Belton. I'm pretty sure most of you are, if you haven't been there for a while. It is high in crime, and they've had some homicide there. So putting a fence up on partial and leaving up to the natural terrain may necessarily fit the bill. You might want to consider some sort of virtual security so that when cars go in and out, you can get the license plate with high resolution, because crime is a major issue. And since this is affordable housing for people in an underserved community on that southeast corner, they're kind of forgotten over there. So they really do need our help, because that unit is 50 plus years old. Yeah. And it really needs a lot of update. We don't need lipstick put on it, cosmetics. We need some actual infrastructure improvements. So I just share that with you. And hopefully we just don't sweep it on the rug and say, okay, $13 million, what do we get in return if in fact this developer who is not in our community is far, far away? What leverage do we have? Thank you.
Thank you. I think to clarify just on that one is the way the tax credit program works. Is this through federal taxes, not local? So this is not supported by local. This is federal, and it's an ability, the ability for developers to defray some of the costs and reduce the risks in these types of a development. So the MOU isn't tied to the tax credits.
But it's in our city.
It is in our city.
It's federal.
Yes, sir.
And if we're concerned about our residents, be it federal, state, or local, there ought to be some way to control that, because they're asking our permission to support this $13 million tax credit. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So we've got some say in it, be it federal or whatever.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Anyone else wishes to speak in favor or against? Would you like to? Yeah.
Go on, Lauren.
Yeah. Now's the time.
Well, everybody, nice to meet you. Lauren Jensen from New York. So I totally appreciate what Marvin was saying and what Matt has proposed today. I think we've put a lot of effort into working with the city, and I think I started talking to Sam Listy probably back in October of last year. We purchased the property from an unrelated developer, I think in November of 2022. We hear you that there are tons of security issues at the property. I don't think anyone is denying that. I think we've put forth a pretty comprehensive, security system in place, which involves not just, redoing the fencing and, provide different kind of barriers so cars can't get through, but it also does include 20 and security monitored cameras throughout the site. We have, site lighting implemented as well with that. I think from the license plate readers that will be at both of the entries of the site, we plan on using, with the police department, we're going to be providing them with, rent rolls with tenants' names. We're going to be implementing parking passes, and a system so that if someone has a visitor, their license plates get registered. If they're caught on the cameras as a bad actor, we're able to track them down using their license plate. And then anyone who wouldn't be registered in the system, their license plate, their car would be towed that day. So we've heard those concerns. I think we have some solutions going forward there. My head of security met with, Police Deputy Gene Ellis, a few months ago, and we walked the site with him, and we understood where the real issues are in terms of, residents walking in and out, in terms of bad actors walking in and out that, is not through the main entry and trying to, not be seen. I think we've, had some good fruitful conversations and have devised a plan that I think we can all agree on. And of course, if there's anything else that we can do that everybody thinks would be beneficial, we're happy to do it. The MOU is a draft MOU. We are happy to take comments on it. I think eventually the point is to get to a full comprehensive management plan between the owners and between the city that highlights some of the items in the MOU. We can add more if there are people who think that there are other ideas that would be helpful. We are happy to do that. Just coming from my company as a developer, we have been developing affordable housing since 2004. We started in New York City. We are a New York City-based developer, but we've done some of the most difficult Section 8 housing complexes in New York City. New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA, they own many, many units. They partnered with us to renovate all of those units. We put in a significant amount of work. All of those buildings had, pretty much no heat to them for many years. We are now owners. We manage the complex. Our general contractor did the work, and we still own all of our projects to date. So our plan as a developer is to come in and really help projects make them better. We're long-term owners. We don't just come in, do a construction and then sell it. We'll be here for at least 15 years. Hopefully more if you guys like us, and we can do it again in 15 years. But we're long-term owners who have done this in a lot of different areas across the country. We have 2 other projects in San Antonio. We have 1 other project in Baytown, Texas. So I don't know. That's just about us. And I just, hope you see that we're here for the long run and to make things better.
All right. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Anybody?
Anyone else wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question in reference to when everything is in place, will they have maintenance people here on site or what?
We have a on-site staff. We have at least 2 office staff on site.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? All right. There being no other public comments, we will close the floor and reopen the deliberations. Does council have any questions or comments?
Got a couple more pertaining to just trying to wrap my head around a $43 million, what that looks like in Bell Oaks. I didn't see a construction plan. I don't know is this additional units? Is it complete refurb? Is it lipstick? Is it, I mean,
It's pretty substantial. Yeah, and we've got plans in our hands. They're still making their revisions comments wise, so they're not ready for this evening, but it's pretty substantial. It's touching most all the places on the property. Lauren.
And 43 million is total development costs, so it includes acquisition costs, it includes legal fees, it includes financing
Yeah.
fees. The total construction contract is for around $8 million. And as you mentioned, around 13 million in LIHTC federal equity, which would be generating around 11.5 million in actual tax credit equity going into the project.
Let's help.
And-
I'm thinking 43 million construction. fine.
I wish.
$200,000 a unit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and in terms of scope, it's 200 units. We're rehabbing the entire 200 units. There's obviously a big component to that. There's landscaping upgrades. As Matt mentioned, we're putting in new playgrounds. We're doing 2 of them. They're brand new. We're going to fix the basketball court. We're going to upgrade all the sites in unit. It's pretty much everything you can think of. So all the cabinets get replaced, all the flooring gets replaced with laminate, all Energy Star efficient appliances, painting throughout, all new van tubs. We're coming in and we're going to redo the entire thing. For us, it just doesn't really make sense to not do that. We've already done a majority of the air conditioning units at Bell, so we're going to come and finish those. But anything you can really think of that would be replaced will be. I think the one thing that's not placed are the roofs, which were redone 3 years ago. So that's like the only thing I can think of that is not in our scope.
Yeah, that does help. It definitely clarifies and gets me off of the where's the money going type of thing. My last one is just a concern, and we say obviously is face value. What you say is face value. My biggest concern is it is low income housing as much as the area in renovation. I understand business is business at some point still too, and I hope it's not all passed on. And I know there's federal dollars involved in tax credits and other Section 8 payments and stuff, but my concern is really just we have to have a adequate source of low income housing to meet the needs of the community. So
Sure.
Matt, can you, to Mr. Bell's question about leverage per se, can you talk a little bit about how the MOU works regards to the federal tax credit and stuff? We're not really going to be a partner in this as far as ongoing oversight or anything like that.
No. The MOU is essentially binding us to what we're saying we're going to do. There's several provisions at the end of that MOU if they don't follow through on certain items by certain days. So really, the support, the tax credit proposal, again, a federal tax, locally, a little bit to the point there is that property right now is valued on the rolls of about 11 million. An $8 million investment will likely raise that property value some. So there's probably a benefit to the community from that. But yeah, that's the credits application is obviously what they're seeking. We seek the MOU of essentially holding each other accountable so that dialogue kind of moves along with that. And they've certainly been very willing partners and much different tone than we've had with new owners in the past, if that maybe is the best way of putting that.
Man, I'm really glad to
Yes,
hear
sir.
that. See, the changes to the MOU, once it's signed, requires the signatures of both parties before it's binding.
Yep.
That there's a reasonable cure period if things don't go well. And my understanding is that we do not believe we're getting back into a situation where it would take tombs worth of material to going to the Secretary of State to get any movement out of our owner, who should be our partner, because these folks deserve to be treated with dignity and to live reasonably, well, and it's low income, but that doesn't mean it's not nice, and it should be nice, and we should, and I hear you being very respectful of that, and I appreciate that, and I want to affirm that. But I'm with Mr. Bell in that, what are the clawback provisions? And I understand it's not our dollars, and I say that with parentheses, air quotes around it, but John, are you comfortable?
we really have no leverage, but this is to help them get the tax credits that they need to make this project work.
Right.
It's gonna be audited by the federal tax authority.
But if we're back to where we're this,
Leave it thinking that, it's not what we hope it will be 2 years from now. We have very much. That's above our pay. But I will say this, I represented the city almost 50 years, 45 years. We never have been able to even get in touch with owners
Right.
ever. In fact, 2, 3, we were trying to get this project completely demolished.
right, I know, I don't want to be there again.
So we can just basically go on what they're doing, what they've told us they're gonna do, and try to hold them accountable. We can certainly defy the people who are above our pay grade if something's not happening like we think it should be, and they might be held to task by somebody else, but it's not gonna be us. We're trying to help them basically through this memorandum, get the tax credits that they need to make this project a whole lot better. You know,
I agree. And we represent the folks that will be living there.
we've been dealing with those people for
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
since 1971,
I'm,
whatever it is. And
we want it to succeed. Howley,
Us too.
we demand that it do.
I will say Larry, Chief Berg, I mean, he's really worked closely with him. He's had some good ideas. He's walked that property many dozens of times. He knows, Larry's been here forever too. He knows that property. He's, and I think he would tell us that this is the first time we've really been able to have any dialogue with people who are responsible for that complex, honestly. It was a beautiful, I'll be quiet here in a minute, but Mr. Griggs gave that property
Yeah.
for
Mm-hmm.
this type of housing over 50 years ago,
Yes, sir.
and for Miller Heights School and for the baseball field out
Yep,
there.
yep.
And he had a beautiful dream and a beautiful vision. Unfortunately, it's gotten off path since then. Maybe this will help get it on path and back to what he visioned way back then. But I think they need this to try to accomplish what they're saying they're trying to accomplish.
Go ahead, Wayne.
I just want to wish you good luck, Ms.
Yeah.
Jensen. It's, as John just mentioned, it's a beautiful piece of property. Having spent some time there with the school district in that area, I know what detriment it's been to the entire community, especially the school kids around that area. So really hopeful that the credit will allow you all to clean it up and create the kind of place that we can all be proud of. So I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Including the residents. So I just want to echo Wayne and a couple of other things. Thank you so much for the time that you've given to invest in improvement in this property. I understand the concerns. I hear them as well, and I think we all can respect them, and we know what our goals are. But having been around this community for a long time, I just want to say thank you for the investment, the opportunity to invest in this area, to make it something proud for the residents in the community and the rest of Belton. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that I'm excited about the project and hopeful for a fantastic result. We're not a party to the agreement between the developer and the federal government realistically. I mean, other than tossing in this MOU. But I think it's gonna be great.
We know you want to protect your investment too. So thank-
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I move that we approve agenda item 6 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve agenda item 6, which includes the memorandum of understanding for the comprehensive management operations plan and the resolution of no objection to the issuance of tax credits. Any more comments or questions?
Who gets the data from the license plate readers? And you're going to be feeding the names as they change, if the residents and those sort of things, so.
Monthly.
Monthly, but if that wants to be weekly, I'm okay with that. You know, it's as simple as printing a report for us and somebody else to grab it.
right, yeah, so, any other?
No.
I will say, it's my understanding that this is an MOU for the comprehensive management and operation plan, and that you will codify that operation plan, which does give the city, I would say, some remedy for communication and making sure that we're, yeah, so, okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you very much. Thanks for coming down and
Yeah.
enjoying a little humidity with us. So it is a little warm.
We're still preheating.
Yeah. If you can get to a boat dock, it's if you can get a boat out there on the lake, you'd be the only one. So it's a very underutilized natural resource down here.
Just
So
have to sling load it in, that's all.
Thank you.
all right. Item 7 is consider award of a bid and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with TTG Utilities for the construction of North Belton water line replacement project and any change orders associated with the contract not to exceed the amount authorized under state law.
Good evening,
Scott.
Mayor and Council. Hope y'all are having a good evening. It sounds like it. Everything's going along great. Appreciate this opportunity. This is a great opportunity for the city and staff to for this project, the North Belton Waterline Replacement Project. It's something that staff's been needing for some time. This is just an aerial view to show you the sites we're talking about, encompassed in red. It's Guthrie, Summit, and Oak. Those are the areas where we will be replacing some water lines. The background of this project is that the main line, water main that's in the ground right now is a thin-walled class PVC pipe. So it deteriorates over time, especially with ground movement and such. It just isn't very compatible with certain areas of surface land. The surfaces are polybutylene material, which degrades. It's a thinner type material and just degrades. Kind of giving you a representative of what the thicker walled pipe is compared to the thin wall pipe. It's quite significant, especially in the ground over time. Right now there's known 9 areas throughout this area that had repairs done. So we've tore up the road, we've tore up properties to make these repairs for areas that we've had instances in. This project details, we're going to be running 3,800 linear feet of C900, which is what we usually use for water main repairs and new projects nowadays. Installation of service lines to properties, which is an into polyethylene, which is a highly durable line compared to the polybutylene. It'll also have 4 new fire hydrants along with milling and overlaying of the streets, which is something that we're excited about. This is just a view of the lot of this road that shows the patching, also shows the little concrete valley gutters that, like this project, we were able to replace those entirely. It was going to be a cutout section, which wouldn't have benefited the residents in that area much at all. But you can also go up around the street and there's another patch that's full width of the street. The bid opening on this was May the 30th. We had a budgeted OPC of 1.25 million, and TTG Utilities was the winning bidder on that. And we do have Donna James over here with us, a representative for TTG with us. It came in a hair over budget with construction admin and stuff included in it. But overall, with the costs and with the staff, all of us are excited that this came with this type of budget, especially with the mill and overlay of this area. So it is our recommendation that we award the bid and authorize the city manager to execute this contract. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Any questions?
Scott, when you talk about replacing the service lines to the residents, that's up to the meter?
Yes.
And then from the meter on is theirs?
From the main to the meter. So we'll be replacing 8-inch water mains throughout the whole project, along with brand new services to each property.
Scott, how many fire hydrants did you say?
4.
4.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
So as far as kind of root cause, was this developer, I guess the developer put this line in?
Yeah.
And is this just at the time, was this at code or below code?
At the time, more than likely at
Okay.
so just subsurface interior basing materials and such like that. And also it's a rocky area.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help with the thin glass pipe.
I just wanted to take that opportunity to mention because the long-term costs of development, when we don't catch it on the front end. And so I know that we get some back sometimes from developers, but anyway, I just wanted to make sure we understood.
I move we approve agenda item 7.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the awarding of the contract. Any other comments or questions before we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we pass unanimously. Item 8 is consider authorizing the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with KPA Engineers for construction administration services for the North Belton Waterline Replacement Project. Sounds familiar.
I'm going to ask for forgiveness on the, it's not exactly professional. It was a last minute throw together. So it's got all the pertinent information. Next time I'll make sure it's appropriate. But this, this is with KPA, Casberg, Patrick and Associates, Construction Admin Services. The services will include a construction conference, review submittals along with shop drawings, partial payment forms and partial payment request, projects visits during the construction, weekly status and schedule updates, construction progress meetings, schedules, contract scheduling with staff, advise and consult with the city and communicate with the contractor, preparing routine change orders. When the project's complete, final walkthrough, as always, contractor and city staff, final pay quantities and record drawings that are always prepared at the end of the project. The impact of this would be $51,000 and it's funded under the capital project fund. With that, we are recommending consider authorizing the city manager to enter into this professional services agreement with KPA. And we have John Simchik here with KPA also.
All right.
I'll make a motion and we approve agenda item number 8 as presented.
Second. We have a motion. We have a motion and a second to approve or authorizing the city manager to enter into the contract with KPA. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, now the exciting part. Budget. Mr. Rogers.
Here we go.
Now the exciting part.
It's where the rubber meets the road.
There you go.
That's how you pay for those projects.
How do you pay? That's right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll let them. You can stay, John. Come on.
Call out, man, the call out.
Thanks for the opportunity.
So we're here tonight about some more funds as we move forward in the budget process. Tonight, we'll specifically talk about our special revenue funds, our internal service funds, BEDC, and then we'll have a little update from our last meeting. Going forward, talk about hotel motel tax fund. This fund's a special fund of the city that accounts for all of the activity related to hotel occupancy taxes. Just a reminder, our hotel occupancy tax is 7%. And being a special revenue funds, we're legally restricted on how we can use those funds to basically, the big picture is promoting tourism and the hotel convention industry. There's a subcategory of that really we can use those things mainly for this advertising, promoting our city events, as well as maintaining convention center and things like that. So let's for fiscal 2025, let's start here. Let's start with 24. So it looks like we're going to end fiscal 24 with around $985,000 in reserves. For fiscal 25, $510,000 of revenue in the proposed budget, expenditures of 407. It looks like we would increase reserves if that's the case by 103,000 to just over $1 million at the end of fiscal 2025. So I want to kind of review current year 2024 compared to 2025. On the revenue side, we budgeted 444,000 in revenue for fiscal 24. It looks like we're going to come in
right on target, if you will, a little bit short of that. For fiscal 25, we're going to increase revenue by $66,000 to $510,740. So why is that? I use for hotels, this fund, I use average growth rate to kind of come up with what I expect revenue to be. And the average growth rate, 3-year growth rate is 18% for this fund. So that's going to drive that revenue growth. I wanted to give you an update on short-term rentals. We adopted that ordinance during this fiscal year, if not the very end of last fiscal year. Wow, a year's passed already. And we have 19 short-term rental units permitted. I suspect we have more than 19 short-term rental units in the city. But 19 of those have been permitted. And of those 19, 11 of them have not paid us any hotel occupancy taxes. So just this past week, we sent letters to all of those delinquent taxpayers. We have several of them have since contacted me and my staff. We've collected revenue from, I think, 2 of those. A couple of others have not had any activity during the last 12 months. So that's understandable, but we require them to still file a report. So we're making some progress on that. We still have not hired a firm to really track and maintain all this. The last part of that was the county was looking at hiring a firm to manage all properties within the county. I attended a commissioner's court meeting and expressed our interest in probably piggybacking on that contract. I have not heard anything back from the county as to whether or not they actually did that. If they have, I'll start having some conversations with them. But we still have some to go on getting all these folks registered, I believe. But we're making some progress. Let's see. It actually does have its own hotel occupancy tax. They turn around and give us a portion of that. And then we turn around and give that money to the Bale County Expo Cadence Center, actually. And then interest income will a little more as we go along. On a percentage basis, on the expenditure side, this fund does primarily that. 50% of the costs and the revenue that comes into this fund, we spend on tourism and sponsorships and that sort of stuff. That's what it's for. If we look at the expenditures on a budget to budget side, our budget in 2024 was $344,350. It looks like we're going to come in around $256,000 in 2024. 2025, the budget's going to would go up 18.2% to $407,000 in fiscal 25. So why is that? What are we spending our money on here? Well, state law requires us now to use 1/7 of our revenue for advertising. So we've increased the marketing budget by $5,000 to $65,000 on that account line anyway. But we also included $80,000. You remember in fiscal 24, we added $80,000 to increase our social media presence, marketing of that. We put that in as a placeholder in 24 while we figured out, what do we really need here? Do we need an individual, an employee to do this function for us? Or do we need to hire a firm to do this for us? And so in 2024, we currently have a communications survey consultant that's working with us to kind of make that determination as to, what do we need? Where are we short? What are we lacking in our communication marketing efforts? The result of that study is going to help us drive that decision as to whether it should be, how we're going to do this. But for 25, I'm leaving that 80,000 in this fund until we sort it out.
Like, I think if I remember correctly, that item was for way more than just social media. I think it was for all of marketing and PR, just to clarify, because that seems like a lot.
I appreciate that. It's really marketing in general. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Like the sponsorship, it looks like we budgeted 146,000. Gonna spend 127.
we're increasing that to 203. Or a 57,000 increase in tourism.
So this is what makes up most of that money there. I believe this is what we have under sponsorships. So we're putting on 3 events, and they continue to grow. We're spending now more for fiscal 25. We want to budget $6,000 for Christmas on the Chisholm Trail. That's an increase over 24. Bacon Blues and Brews is also going up again, now 40,000 in fiscal 24. We have many events that we have sponsorships for. We budgeted 73 for that. And then we've added in 25 this $30,000 for a chuck wagon cook-off that we can have in event, basically. If you have any questions there, Judy can help kind of with that vision of what that
Those are
might be.
cool.
So that's the increase mainly is that lab that you see there, the biggest part of that event.
Exciting.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So before we jump, so I understand the desire to do a 3-year average, but you picked the rebound year. So if you look at, COVID 2021, and so you're starting from a notch, the bottom of the notch, assuming it's going to be continuing to go up. It's probably just rebounding. It's not up and to the right at the same rate, is my guess. So it might be good to just look at like a 5 or 6 year graph to see, because attendance, hotels decreased and then they came back. And I think we're probably hitting close to pre-COVID levels, maybe even elevated, because I think we finally finished that in an Expo Suites or something. So
I'm looking at the average years that I'm using are fiscal 22, fiscal 23, and then this estimate for 24. It's grown from 77,000 in 22. It then went to 333,000 in 23, making 376 in 24. And then that growth over that time frame. Be a bit optimistic, yes.
About consistency with the average. Yeah. We just hit a number that seems to work instead of doing a 3-year or 5-year for everything.
Yeah.
And being able, you truly use an average. Yeah. But 2-year average is a much.
And also, I would say it seems like our reserve is getting pretty high for something that's pretty restricted in what we can spend. And so when we try to, it's harder to spin that down. So I don't know what, maybe, I think you just sent a memo back to us on all the different funds. Yeah.
And that might could be addressed in some of our future tourism strategic planning that we have coming. And I know we won't see it in 25, but hopefully 26, 27, we'll start to see some new revenue from a couple new hotels as well. Just
these funds, a lot of times are difficult to spend. You're correct because of the very tight legal restrictions on how we can spend it. So, yes, we need to have some discussions on exactly what you're saying.
The last time we spent a chunk was on the rehab of the visitor center. It's probably been the last.
And also we can, if we were to have a full-time person, we could pay. Okay. So,
right.
Because right now we're splitting, I think, with TERS and with this fund. And I think that there's some things we could do that would then free up the TERS with more, more flexibility.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's that we can look at.
Right.
Anything else on hotel before we move on?
Again, either tonight or afterwards, just like the last time, if you guys have any direction, like we think we should spend more or less, or where, just get with Mike and we can work that through the budget process.
It's exciting to see that this fund has grown. Been pretty involved with it for several years, and that's certainly a team effort. And just thank Judy for all the work you do for tourism and how you've helped that grow over the years as well. But great job on everybody, just making our community such a wonderful place to come spend time.
I don't think it was that long ago. It was 80,000 a year.
Yeah, I remember.
Right.
It was not
And
much.
it's flat and nothing in the bank.
When is the chuck wagon cook-off? Sorry, you know the rules.
That's a fun idea. Actually, we had tried to do this several years ago, but Parks and Rec is who brought it back and mentioned that they wanted to do it out at Heritage Park. And so we already had a packet for it. And so we're just working, trying to bring back the Fiddlers contest as well. With that, we thought it would be a good match. And so I did go to a chuck wagon cook-off a long time ago to just see what it was like. It was probably 5 years ago in Llano, and talked to the guy that's been putting it on there for years. And it was just a really pretty awesome event. So we're excited to bring it back, bring it to Belton.
It'd be great to be in the parade, see all them chuck wagons coming down. And then later during that week, you could have the cook-off as part of the 4th of July festivities, but that would really promote those guys.
That is a really good idea. Yeah, absolutely. No pressure.
All right.
That's you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
All right.
So moving on to our tax increment reinvestment zone. So the TERS is our second special revenue fund, and it accounts for all of the activity within our TERS. Just a reminder that our TERS is now 4,384 acres. And these projects, you can only use this funding on projects that have been approved, that are in the project plan, and also approved by the TERS board and city council. So let me show you where I think we're going to end here. So the TERS fund will probably end this fiscal year, or may end this without anything weird happening, around 1.3 million at the end of 2024. There's 3.6 million in revenues in 25, 3.3 million of expenditures. So we would increase reserves at the end of fiscal 25 to $1.6 million. We split we get our contribution from two places. The city contribution is 64% of revenues, and the county provides about 35% of TERS fund revenues. So looking on a budget to budget basis, for fiscal 24, we budgeted $3,193,000. Like we're going to come in a little short of that, just under 3.1 million. For fiscal 25, we'd increase 13.6% to $3,630,000. Is really the increase in property values within the TERS. TERS grow. I'm expecting once we get our certified roll, the TERS values would increase around $88 million since last year, or 15%. The TERS values would be the captured value, no less, 436 million of captured increment within the zone for this tax year. So that revenue that I showed you of the city assumes now, based upon our last meeting, a no new revenue tax rate of 5309. I've adjusted that slightly. The county contribution is based upon the county tax rate today, which is 2914. It won't be that likely. They'll contribute more or less based upon whatever tax rate that they adopt. Come on, thing. On the expenditure side, $3,020,000 is what we budgeted in 24. We're going to come in about 100,000 short of that. Again, increasing the expenditure budget by 300,000 to 3.3 million 2025. So a couple of things are causing that. We have $20,000 set as kind of really as a placeholder in case we need to do some surveying or other things related to the TERS growth. But here's your bigger change. Facade grants, that account line increases from $150,000 to $315,000. And we've added several things here based upon the beautification committee recommendations. One, we have $150,000 allocated each year now for facade grants. We also put $100,000 in there for what we would call kind of more infrastructure improvements. This would be not necessarily the face of the building, But if there was some more public infrastructure like sidewalks or drainage around a facility, that type of stuff, some of that money for that to improve that area.
Yeah, maybe getting rid of a few of those electrical poles that are in the middle of the sidewalks.
That's also okay.
Stuff like that.
Like, yeah, it's a good example.
Maybe some of the tank ditches that are in the middle of some of the stuff.
Maybe also that. The beautification committee, we also put 50,000 in the TERS fund for murals within the downtown area, especially within the zone. And then there's 15,000 for welcome to Belton signs, all budgeted in 2025, which we haven't done before. But what the TERS does best is pay for projects. So we have $2,976,000 in 2020 that are budgeted for these projects. $776,000 will continue the design of Connell. We have $400,000 for sidewalks along Penelope, $700,000 set aside for walks along Main, and $1.1 million for the second phase of Loop 121 utility relocation. Those are some major projects that we can do with TERS funding that we're really looking forward to. Any questions on TERS before I move on?
I'll just have to say it's amazing the amount of projects that this fund has helped do. And it's amazing. What's $88 million increase this next year?
Yes, in value. This fund has done some amazing things.
Yeah, just a quick thought from me, comparing the tourism fund to the TERS fund. Looking at the TERS fund, the projected fund balance is about half the budget, and the tourism fund, the projected fund balance is about double the budget. So it seems like with this being a more flexible fund to use, not to take away from tourism, because we're doing plenty of good, but like if there was a way to pump more money into this one, we're really making some big strides in the city with that.
This fund is very efficient. The project selection is very precise and targeted, and we're doing some really good things here.
To add on that and kind of pile on the last conversation is we may want to think, because I think this fund splits a salary with hotel motel. We may want to think about shifting that over to hotel motel because it looks like it's pretty stable. Now, before it was pretty going down and we didn't want to put a full. So
the one cautionary thing there is the reason that salary is split is because that workload.
Yeah, it's
the hotel fund could not pay for.
Okay.
Yeah, couldn't pay for 100% of the salary there because that
Gotcha.
100%
Okay,
of the
so
work is not
regulate.
performed.
Okay, gotcha.
But the allocation we can look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, we said we shifted from 50-50 to 75-25.
Yeah.
Right.
Eventually.
And maybe give her a raise.
Should be very valuable.
Okay, Director, yeah, I'm not, I was gonna say no, but that's not really my call.
Great to have
No.
a partnership with the county too. Yeah, I was gonna add that we can do with the county, since they're a contributor to this fund, assisting them with freeing up some of those properties downtown. That sure would be beneficial as well.
There's lots in the hopper. We do have county facilities listed as an eligible project within the TERS. There's lots bubbling on that as we speak. So yes, we're cognizant of their contribution and we need to assist them as we can.
I know in talking about redevelopment of older buildings and stuff, there's been a lot of conversation about the burden that asbestos abatement and lead paint abatement costs and weighs on the people who are investing in these. Is that something that TERS money can contribute toward, like it does with facade improvement grants?
Legally, we'll have to play around with that. You get into some private property issues, some private property type stuff there versus public purpose. Again, it has to also be a project that's listed in our project plan, which we can amend at any time. That's, but yeah, that's all part of the discussions that we need to.
Yeah, I think
in developing that.
Yeah. And I think to Dave's point, I think when it comes to like abatement of asbestos, that's for the public good, not only just the business owner. Now, putting in new air conditioning systems and sprinkler systems and stuff like that, that may be
I think
a
that's a
little
good
bit
argument.
I think
that's a good
abatement is probably a safe one. I don't know how many more, I mean, there's been quite a few of those buildings have already been abated, but not all of them. So.
Yeah, some on the west side of Maine.
Well, if you think about the pit building, it's a
Yeah,
possibility.
that's huge.
Yeah, when you, well, I think when you think about Central Avenue, that's one thing, but with how big the turf, there's plenty of old buildings that could still benefit from that.
That's good comments. Thank you.
Right. IT.
Moving on to IT. So now we're talking about our internal service funds. This particular fund obviously accounts for information technology services. So an internal service fund, its only customer is the city. So departments within the receive services from Chris and his group, and those are charged for those services through a cost allocation. But it's the city basically charging itself for its work. Because this is a proprietary type fund, it's supposed to have operate more like a business. So it's intended to recover enough revenue to cover things like depreciation, to cover things like future purchases over time. It's not a break-even fund, if you will. So where this is expected to be, for fiscal 24, we may end this fund with $375,000. But if you look here, we're going to spend $1.2 million with revenues of 1 million, drawing down reserves by 212,000. And that's exactly the way this fund is supposed to operate. It's going to build reserves over time until finally that big purchase. This is like now the 5th year of a 5-year replacement plan where we got to replace some very expensive items, network switches, a phone system, all of these things. And now in 25, that's when those expenses will occur. And so we'll end this year more like $162,000 in reserves at the end of 25. The general fund makes up most of these costs. We allocate these costs based upon computer count primarily, or device count, that what they have to maintain, as well as any kind of specific items that IT needs to purchase for certain departments. So if you look here in 2024, our revenues are right in line where they should be. Very modest increase of only $20,000 in fiscal 25. On the expense side, most of what that fund does is pay for software, and 41% of those costs are going to that. Capital outlay, the hardware side, is 19% of the FY25 budget. So let's compare, look at the expenses side and compare budget to budget. Right in line with budget right now. 954,000 is what we budgeted in 24, and I'm looking at being right on top of that at the end of this year. For fiscal 25, however, our costs go up $329,000. And again, you can see this big jump right here in capital. That's these large items that we have to purchase in 25. Just for your information, we spend almost a little over $500,000 in software at the city of, and that's not getting any cheaper. We'd like to move fiber, install some fiber at 3 different locations, installing fiber into City Hall where all of our equipment is. But there's your big cost, $171,000. We're going to replace the phone system. It's network switches. That's a large chunk of that, as well as laptops, and add some trail cameras is deriving that cost. Anything on IT before we move on?
So phone systems are starting to go the way of the dodo bird. I guess these are like voice over IP, like computer type.
Yes.
That you can answer with a computer or a handset.
Correct.
Okay.
It will be much more modern than what we have. Yes. And that's part of the reason why we need to do that. The building maintenance fund is our other internal service fund. Guess what that does? That fund does building maintenance. Just agree, Chris, just nod. If I said something wrong, just nod. It's easier that way. Okay, the building maintenance fund. For, again, expect to end this year, $332,000. This is yet another fund that we're going to draw down reserves on. So, the reason that is this is evident that, or maybe proof that, so we finance folks actually monitor the fund balance in all of these funds. We started looking at this particular fund. Fund balance was really too high. So we're going to draw that down some. This 265 is still a large number for this fund, but again, remember, we're building up reserves for that future purchase in for HVAC units and things like that. 81% of the revenue comes from the general fund. So let's look now at that. You see this 24.5%. That's the reduction in revenue. So in other words, we're reducing the revenue coming into this fund by basically 25%. So it'll draw down reserves a bit. $25,000 less in 2025 than it is in 2024. 65% of the costs of this fund are related to personnel. So you see comparison budget to budget, 400,000, 449 budgeted, and we're going to come in around 426. A $40,000 in expenses, again, though, even though revenues are going down, but that's intentional. Annual merit increases are pushing up your personnel costs a bit. One of the bigger items we just kind of wanted to point out was doing some renovations over at the building maintenance office, adding some skirting and an ADA deck at that location. HVAC is, those costs are one of the things that this fund does. And those costs are going up by $9,000 in 25. What we'd also like to do in this fund is send some people to training, get them out of the office and go to the Public Works Institute of Texas. Really beneficial in training to the employees. That's our internal. Any questions on maintenance before we move on?
Mike, before those specific funds, technology and maintenance, we would just keep that excess in the general fund. And now we're pushing 37.5% excess cash on hand over and above our requirement 25. We up to the 30. Now we're at 37%, and we've also got, before this budget, another $500,000 sitting in these funds. Do we not look at that excess as part of our general fund requirement or dollars?
No, because it's its own thing now.
Yeah.
So what we used to have, we had for a very long time. Well, I'll say a very long time. We've had for a long time, an equipment replacement funding for IT and an equipment replacement funding, not vehicles, but this kind of equipment and stuff for building maintenance. We were transferring money every single year into these other funds, just like we do for vehicles, for this software, this hardware that we're replacing and all that. And it was out there on its own. What we did when we created these funds is we eliminated, or that fund, we didn't really eliminate it. We created these two internal service funds using those dollars that were already there. And so it's really operating exactly the same way as it always has. It's just we're capturing all of that activity within these funds that we set up. And we're able to capture, so IT is a good example. We used to have IT costs, software costs is the best way. Remember I said $500,000 worth of IT of software costs? We used to have those software costs spread out throughout each division within the city. Planning would have its own software costs. Police would have its own software costs. We had no clue how much we spent on software. But by consolidating that under one thing, now we can capture the cost of operation, of IT here at the city. And I can have one person responsible for all that software with Chris. It's easy for him to budget and to talk to department heads about what they need. We're not duplicating software. It's just having that separate fund allows us to really
It's a-
focus on those costs.
It's a really good tool. I think what John's trying to point out is that we know there's going to be future expenses. Like you said, hey, it's a 5-year plan. We know there's going to be some future expenses. So let's say we $300,000 over the next 5 years that we think we're going to do. But as you grow, right, that 300,000 next year is going to be, well, we need to have 328,000 or something, whatever it is. But at some point, like we're seeing in it is we then, if you have any balance above and beyond what is allocated, and I would say planned allocations, which is replacing a server in 2 years, we don't know what the price is, but it's close. And then also we know that we're going to have unscheduled maintenance, right? And AC goes out. So there's going to be an amount that we need to keep in reserve. But the feeling is based on our reserve funds is there's also an amount above that are sitting in some of these funds. 100,000 here, 20,000 here, 400,000 there. That I think the proposal is if we were to really analyze it and look at it at the end of the year, if we don't spend those funds the way it is, that we could then return those back into the general fund, right? And kind of do just
Well, look, so a couple of things. One, we don't have that much excess. I'll jump right in front of that.
Yeah.
What you haven't seen is the replacements behind all of this.
That's correct.
And in the case of vehicle replacements, I'll use that for example. We are nowhere near having enough money to pay for the vehicles and things that we have. I mean, you got to build that fund. That's part of the pay-go process is accumulating these funds over time. And exactly what happens in the vehicle replacement fund and can happen also in say IT costs, things bust and you wreck vehicles. I planned on replacing this thing now, and then I turned the corner yesterday and somebody totaled this vehicle and now.
But usually there's an insurance component to
Yeah,
that.
well, I'm using that.
Yeah. AC.
But the same thing, AC and whatever. So I mean, I'm not going to tell you that we're so lean that there's no money that I can give back to the general fund. I'm telling you that things happen and that's the point of reserve. And so we might need to,
and I'm just speak for me. I think it's great that we've gone to these funds. It adds a level of transparency now that we actually can see aggregate total of what these are doing instead of being divided up into 14 different areas. I think the thing that, like you said, there's an allocation behind the scenes that maybe in a spreadsheet that doesn't rise to us.
Yeah.
And so when we look at it, I don't know, 40, 20, 60 million. I mean, it's more than 10 million. That's in funds that go in addition to our general fund, anyway, it's just,
no, I agree.
Yeah, it's just those kind of things I think are,
I got it.
41.
Yeah, 41 unallocated.
Available.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unneeded, just unallocated.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. So in that I provided earlier on reserve balances, the thing that I mentioned in training that I do is the phrase different colored money, and you can't forget that part. So like that, all of those special revenue funds that we have, and we have many, I don't know what the total was, is limited hotel funds, the best example there, where we have a lot of money sitting aside in a hotel fund, more than we probably need, but we need to find something to spend it on. That's an eligible expenditure. I can't just say, I don't know, that's too, I don't need it, let's transfer it somewhere. I just can't do that by law. And so that's why I coined the phrase, like it's different colored money. It's not the general fund money that you can use that.
In my tax, that's tax money that we're revenue from out of town visitors. It's the general fund that continues to grow and it's just under 4%. And we continue to little tax and underestimated our expenses. Click off some additional interest income at about 0.5%. It just adds up.
Yep. No, it does. I'm gonna show you some stuff here in a little bit on general fund. Let's go through BEDC. So EDC board's already approved its budget. Again, EDC was created, for economic development. Its main tenet is job retention, job creation, and capital investment. And EDC gets its revenue from a half-cent sales tax. So looking at EDC, I'm expecting to end fiscal 24 with like $3 million of reserves at the end of 24. For fiscal 25, there's $3.7 million of revenue, only $1.7 million worth of expenses. So at the end of 25, funds would grow in EDC's operating fund by 1.9 million to $13.3 million. On the revenue side, for 24, 3.5 million is what was budgeted. It's going to go over by 4.6, and this 1.3 that you see there, that's a property sale that's causing us to go over there on the revenue side. For 25, a gain of $212,000 to get to 3.7 million in fiscal 25. For fiscal 25, I'm increasing sales tax revenue by 3% in EDC and the general fund, hoping that'll hold true, get another number tomorrow. Charges for service increase slightly. They are doing some work. Some of the staff, EDC staff, is working for the chamber, so the chamber reimburses EDC for that employee. And there's also some industry training that EDC is doing now, and in partnership with Temple College. And so the registration fees for that service is coming into this fund. Interest earnings, again, that's what's pushing some of these funds. So 61% of the expenditures in that fund are transfers, and that's transfers into their own capital project fund for projects. You'll see that here. So 24's budget, $3.2 million, will probably end around 3.1. A significant drop in fiscal 25 to $1.7 million. And that's mainly due to that capital outlay. Again, that's the acquisition of property that was done in 24, not budgeted for 25. Again, annual merit increases will increase personnel costs. There's some property development consulting costs that we're adding, but the big change for BDC is that land acquisition in 24. EDC, like the TERS, contributes a significant amount of funding towards projects. In fiscal 25, that's $1.1 million for the I-14 water line project. That's in addition to the 1.3 million, I think it was, that they're doing in fiscal 24 for the I-14 sewer. So they're good, really significant contributions that EDC is making towards some good projects there this year and next. So any questions for EDC before we move on to like a little update from our last meeting? Okay. So at our last meeting, there was some discussion about drawing down reserves in the general fund. So I've taken that into consideration. We've done some things to the proposed budget for the general fund. One of those at your direction was we kind of brought I'm reducing revenue a bit based upon a no new revenue tax rate as opposed to leaving the tax rate flat where it is today. Before was a flat at 53.26, and the no new revenue rate that I'm doing one of these guesses is about 53.09. Interest income, as we have interest as inflation continues on its merry way. We mentioned before there probably won't be any significant rate cuts by the Fed, which is what our interest income follows, probably until mid or late FY25. So, and I did have a reduction, a 20% reduction. We're getting about 5 now. So instead of reducing that by 20%, I'm only reducing to 10. So I'm adding revenue to reflect a 4.5% rate compared to a 4% rate. But then on the expenditure side, so we did some things that council mentioned. One, we increased street maintenance, the $1 million that we have set aside for street maintenance. we added 5% to that, which is $50,000. I had mentioned before that we reduced or changed our equipment replacement funding plan from 125% to 100. So I'm looking at going back to 125% that we planned. That adds $223,000 of costs to the general fund. There's also a couple of projects that we looked at adding. We went back through all of the department budgets. You know, what did they ask for that we just said no? Really, it was parks that had the big ask, and so a $250,000 project would add LED lights at the Heritage Park Soccer Complex. That's a good thing. We also talked about getting our irrigation for Heritage Park from the Leon River. And we don't know what that's going to be. We don't know what what will that look like? What sort of work would be required and costs required to make that happen? It's just too early for us to know that right at this moment for purposes. But what we did decide to do is put $75,000 in FY25. So we hire somebody to give us some information on that. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be an entire design of the project, but more of what will it take to make this happen to where we could use the Leon River to irrigate a lot of Heritage Park, like saving water on the purchase side. Also, we met recently with our health insurance consultant. I had planned on a 20% increase. It looks like it may end up being closer to 30. And the effect to that for the general fund is another $75,000. So with those changes, this is what it looks like now. For fiscal 24, when we budgeted originally, we planned on using reserves of $284,000, which would bring us down to about $8.4 million. Where it looks like now we could end for 2024, these are the same numbers here that you saw last time, is we may have a $400,000 increase instead of the $284,000 decrease, making our fund balance around $9.1 million at the end of 24. So with these changes that I've shown you, instead of, I originally proposed last meeting that we would increase reserves about $68,000, essentially a flat revenue and expenses. Now the proposed budget draws down reserves by $500,000, which would get us to $8.5 million, which is closer to this 8.4, where we kind of expected we might be in the end. So budgeted expenditures would be about 34.4. Our percent of budget would be our reserve, instead of 38.6 is where we expect to end 24. I also did on the debt service side, we talked about doing a couple of things. One is using $80,000 of reserves to reduce our debt rate for 2025. I can do that. And drawing down this fund balance. So you'd be looking now at a 27. This is once I use that 80,000, we end up with a decrease of reserve, end up basically at this 56,000 at the end of 25.
For the respective rates, you said you would reduce the debt rate.
Now that I can't remember what the 80,000 did.
Couple of pennies.
No, it wasn't that. It's 80,000 divided by 2.8 billion or 2.8 million. It's less than a penny, I think, but what it does do is then raise the general fund side. So the revenues that you saw there, I had to incorporate for that on the general fund side.
Gotcha.
Again, this is only using preliminary information. I can't tell you what exactly the rate's going to be at this time. That gets me to that slide. Anything for me?
Can you go back to the general fund reserves page? I just personally, I like to say we had a quality of life meeting
This,
the other day. And yeah, the one that showed, and I think this is the importance of what John and I were talking about, seeing what we've actually done over the last 4 or 5 years reserve wise. And because when I look at, take the estimate column out, but if you told me, hey, from our budget 2024 to now throwing all these projects back in, if our insurance does hit 30% and all the worst case scenarios that you listed, plus all the best case projects that can be accomplished, and we're still going to be $161,000 higher on our reserve. That's what I like to see personally. Just because that estimate throws it off. You look at that column, oh man, and then you're like, oh, you draw down a lot. But if you really look at that bottom line, take all the other numbers off, to do a no new revenue rate potentially, do all those projects, the quality of life we've added, the value we've been able to keep on our citizens on tax rate down, I think is what says a lot.
Mike, I know you can't really forecast the future any better than the rest of us, but we know we're going to take a big hit when the highway department starts tearing up our roadways. And I know you've done some preliminary. How long do you think we have before that hit really starts to impact our budget? We keep talking about cutting reserves. We're going to go through a rough patch. We've seen it happen to our neighbors, and I'm afraid we're kind of pushing that down the road, and it's going to hit us square on in 3-4 years or less.
I think they were talking construction starting in 2029 on the interstate project. This is FY 25 I'm doing now. So, yeah, 4 short years is when that really starts to impact
right away
our operations.
Before then.
Yeah. And if they start buying right away and closing businesses down earlier than that, that's always possible.
Tax revenue as soon as they buy it.
I'm real concerned about cutting reserves and no new revenue and so forth. When we're talking about, we know this is going to be a major impact that we've not seen in a long time to our total revenue. It's going to make it hard in the town for the other businesses as well. We've seen that happen to our neighbors as well. So it concerns me.
Anything else? So our next process, the next meeting is when we start to have fun with the utilities again. Please put on your calendar a 4 p.m. meeting, I think it is, that we're having, right? To discuss the utility rate study again. We'll come back then after that and have a meeting on the water and drainage funds, as well as a capital improvement program, 5-year CIP at that meeting. Then I'll bring a proposed budget to you in first meeting in July.
25th, 4 o'clock.
Yes. Yes, probably a good idea. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep. Thank you very much.
you very much.
There are years that budgets are painful. This doesn't seem so painful. You know, the businesses have stabilized, tax rate is stabilized. I know that we're all still probably fighting appraisals and all that stuff, but it's where I'm not hearing as much grumbling as I've heard in prior years. And it's also nice to know that as ARPA funding has gone away, that it's not negatively impacting operations, which is nice. So that being said, that's the last thing I have on this. So we will stand adjourned at 6:59:44.
Budget before 7.
Before 7.
That's amazing.
Matt gets a gold star. He can wear it to work.
Yep.
Finish before 7.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. I don't know if we can get any more. Thank you, Mr. Bill. Specifics on what we anticipate.
What I do is just isolate those and bottle it in. And say, let's say we lose $1 million. Recycling can be done. I don't know.
Yeah, they
I really would want to know, like,